Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm Jim today. I have Sergej. How are you doing?
I am doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine as well. And the question of the day is tracking, which I guess isn't a question. There's a couple questions we have, but the topic of the day, that in fact is tracking. I think we're primarily talking about online tracking, but honestly, we'll see where this goes. I guess the first question, is what we're talking about, right? Online sites track you with the use of cookies and the use of fingerprinting, I think, are the two most common ways you're being tracked. So the way cookies work is they can only be provided by the site that you are on or by a site whose scripts it's using, basically. So sites will implement scripts from other sites to just allow them to have cookies on their site, basically. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but that's how you get cross-site cookies, which can track you all across the web. And it's not like every single website you've ever visited uses Google Analytics, so, or Google AdSense for that matter.
Google AdSense I haven't seen all that often, actually. But Google Analytics is like on every single site.
Yeah. So also, those little options about like logging with Facebook is generally enough to have Facebook tracking you as well. I think that's how that works.
No, not really. That usually you implement yourself as the site developer.
Okay, fair enough. But there is definitely also like built-in Facebook comment sections and stuff.
That is enough.
So there's a lot of stuff, and the worst part about this is that oftentimes you won't necessarily be able to immediately tell what a cookie is for. Mm-hmm. You'll have like some random site names and they'll just be tracking cookies. I know we talked about this before in private, definitely, about like how unassuming certain names are, but they're still trackers. And then even if you turn all of those off, there's still fingerprinting, which is basically just the technique of trying to get as much information about your device as possible. That is, and like I say device, but it's not. Yeah, it's not just a physical device. It's also like operating system,
browser you're
operating
using.
System version, browser version, and then like it even goes to like it can detect like which ad block filter lists you have and stuff like that if you like really look for it. And so, if you have enough of those details, you can pretty reliably identify individual devices, and so you can then use that to track someone across the web, because once you know for a fact it's that person, you can then kind of make the connection there. Which also, by the way, is why it's recommended to not just use a bunch of random adblock filters, but basically just use like the default one and maybe one other relevant one. But if you get too selective about them, that I guess you could use all of them, maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of the two main ways you're being tracked online. We had a bit of a cutout there, but I think Sergej is back.
Yes, but we're back.
I just talked about fingerprinting, you know the deal. So, is that the main way of tracking that we're talking about today? Fingerprinting and cookies?
I think so, yeah. It works.
And
if we have more to say, we can do that another time.
The first question you posed is it possible to escape being tracked in the modern day?
Yeah. And I guess that is a legitimate question, because I honestly don't really know. I'm strongly leaning to yes, but I'm not 100% certain.
I mean, if you...
Because there is a lot of things you can do to escape being tracked. Like a very popular thing that even non-technical people, or not that technically able people, know about is Tor, or the Onion Network, or the Darknet. But even that is like not 100% secure against tracking.
Yeah,
there's like a million ways for you to still leak your identity.
So I think the main thing if you're like very paranoid about this stuff and you don't want to be tracked, is just don't use the internet. Even that is only partially successful depending on what kind of tracking you're thinking about, because there's still going to be a lot of information about you online, or there can be a lot of information about you online, even if you never use the internet effectively. There's that whole thing where, people post pictures on the internet all the time, for example. So if you wanted to conceal your location, but someone puts a location tag photo that contains you online, then you'll be found, right? So there's a lot of sort of inadvertent stuff, and obviously, as we all know, the single best facial recognition algorithm in the world is owned and controlled by Facebook. At least, okay, the best one.
I don't know if it's true anymore, but I've heard that quite a few years ago. It might have not been.
I've heard it. I've never verified it, and also, again, right, that we know of, because it's the kind of thing where I would expect agencies like the CIA and the NSA to probably have algorithms that they don't necessarily publicly disclose.
Yeah.
It's kind of their shtick.
They for sure wouldn't disclose that. Yeah. Another thing I've also heard about a couple years ago is that you don't even need a face anymore in a photo. Like, if you have the side of a head on it, that's usually enough.
I mean, technically, if the resolution is high enough, all you would need is fingerprints.
Yeah, sure. But
I have actually seen, they did a thing on TV where they extracted a fingerprint from a photo and then proved that it was functional.
Yep.
So that's fun. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's also some other, maybe less commonly used ones that are interesting, like if you have a video of someone and, you can wear a black hoodie and have a bandana over your face and everything and completely unidentifiable.
Mm-hmm.
Except if you're walking, you can, for example, do gait analysis. I don't know how unique a person's gait is, but it's definitely fairly good. You could definitely limit things. I'm not sure if it's 100% unique.
It's scary.
So there are a lot of things you could go for. So I guess that also, right, ask the question, right, what are you trying to avoid if you don't want to be tracked? Do you just not want to be tracked by Google and Facebook? Or are you trying to run from the CIA? Because I think there's a bit of a difference in, how far you have to go. Because, gait analysis and stuff like that, and, extracting fingerprints from images is probably not something that, a company's going to do for, customized ads or whatever, all right? That's a little too resource intensive, probably.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it over them.
Yeah, I mean, they have done stuff where
I would trust Facebook and Google to do that kind of stuff.
I mean, the story that always comes to mind is that I think it was Google who knew that a woman was pregnant before she knew it, and started advertising baby stuff to her because they knew in her because her behavior changed, so they knew that she was pregnant, even though she didn't know that yet. So that it is kind of wild what they can do.
It is scary, yeah.
I mean, the question always is sort of cost-benefit analysis, right? Because everything that those corporations do is in the name of profit, and so unless they can get money out of it, they're not going to do it. And the more esoteric you get with trying to follow someone, the less useful it becomes to them effectively, because it gets more involved. And also, they're generally not targeting individuals in that sense. While they are creating profiles for every individual, they're not necessarily trying to track you across every single aspect of your life, although to some degree, yes. But it's mostly just the data that they are already easily getting, right? They're not going to start hacking into your camera or whatever just to get extra data on you. Mostly because that would be very expensive if it was found out. Well, I mean, yes.
Would it be, though?
Your home assistants are listening to you. Just assume that. But
I mean, yes. Also, GPS on phones on Android. That wasn't disclosed from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of wild what those companies can get away with too.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is just that being against that sort of tracking is almost more of a principle thing, right? It doesn't really hurt you to be tracked that way. I mean, it still feels wrong. I'm not saying they should be able to do that, but your life doesn't necessarily become any worse because they do it, unless they like do that to like target you with like gambling ads or whatever. Like, it's not exactly unknown that they were like trying to get you back into addictions, as long as it's not. Okay, so the algorithms don't have specific intents in that sense. They're usually just trying to show you whatever you'll most likely buy to maximize profits.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes they'll go after addictions, for example, because getting addicts back into their addiction is very profitable. Not because the algorithm is evil, but just because it's optimized for profit above all else. And so that is obviously a problem, but in general, people won't be hurt by optimized advertising, except that maybe they'll spend some more money, because obviously the whole reason why targeted advertising exists is because it works to some degree.
Yeah.
But if you're like actively like trying to stay off the grid to, because you're an international fugitive or whatever, that could be a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know of anyone. I mean, I know that there are like, there's like the FBI most wanted list and stuff like that. So there are people that are being looked for that are currently not found. But also, you do always have to ask, right? Like, who exactly is looking for them? Where are they being looked for, right? Because if you are on the FBI most wanted list and you're like somewhere in Russia, I don't think that anyone's like specifically looking for you there, right? Just, Russia and the US, not exactly that close. And I mean,
geographically, they kind of are.
Yes. I meant politically, right? They don't exactly like hand out prisoners to each other. Extradition is the word I was looking for. But so there can be those situations where most of the time it's not worth causing an international incident just to get like a single person. I mean, Edward Snowden is still in Russia, I think, right?
As far as I know, yeah.
Right? It's like that's like a fairly well-known thing, and the US is just not going there because they can't exactly easily go there.
Yeah.
They can't just grab him.
That could cause some conflict.
So, but it's not like he's like, I mean, he is fairly off the grid, but it's not like it would be, it's not necessarily because it's impossible to track him that he's not, like, been executed by the Americans. I mean, I guess they technically don't want to execute him, they just want to put him in prison, but like,
Yeah.
So, the question, right, is if like everyone in the world was after you, basically, well, I mean, like, if like all the world governments were after you, I don't think there's anything you could do.
Probably not.
But also, like, that doesn't happen, right? That's the other thing. But I think for the average person, there are certainly ways to reduce the amount you're being tracked, but if you want to participate in modern life, I think some of that is unavoidable.
Yep.
It's actually kind of wasteful to track me, though. Like, targeted advertising doesn't work on me. I use an ad blocker. I don't actually see the ads.
Okay. But have you ever gone on like Amazon.com or Amazon.de in this case?
Rarely, and mostly just for like, I have a Prime subscription. I occasionally use Prime Video, but like I don't really buy stuff on Amazon that much, and when I do, I only buy things that I was already intending to buy. Also, Amazon is notoriously terrible at like showing your products.
That is fair, yes. I still wonder how that's profitable for them, because they're so bad in comparison to everyone else.
Well, I mean,
of the big players,
in a lot of ways, they are still the best platform, right? They're generally fairly cheap. They have just about anything, and so if you end up buying something that's shit, you might just end up buying the good version afterwards, anyways, right? So it's that thing where I genuinely think that because of just the huge volume of stuff that they sell, it doesn't really matter how good their service is. Right? You're not going to go anywhere else.
I guess, yeah.
That's what you can do when you're a monopoly. It's almost like monopolies are bad.
Almost.
Yeah, I guess how much are we being tracked we kind of tackled as well. Do we want to answer the last question you wrote down?
Like if you have something to say about that, sure.
Why does it seem like the majority of people
else
do not care
I
about
have
being tracked?
Else I have some like small amount to add to the how much are we being tracked.
Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So I've mentioned before how like Google just tracks your phone's GPS like at all times, basically.
Yes, I believe you did.
Yeah. What it also does, it doesn't only just send your GPS location to Google, it also sends like a list of all the cell towers and the signal strength to them, as well as like all the Wi-Fi networks and other like wireless devices that your phone can see, and their signal strength to Google. So even if you have a device that does not have GPS, like a laptop, like maybe an older one, you can still really, really precisely like locate it on the planet just based on like Wi-Fi.
It's basically triangulation.
It is wild. Yeah.
Although you need 4 points if you also want to determine height, but that is besides the point. That only really matters within buildings anyways. So, the thing is, the best way not to be tracked to that degree is just to not have mobile devices. That's like a big help. Like that way, at least your location is not normally being tracked.
I mean, as long as you have like a Wi-Fi receiver or like Wi-Fi antenna, I guess it's not really a receiver. You can be tracked, right?
Yeah, but that's
as
why
long as your device sees Wi-Fi networks.
That's what I was saying,
like,
right?
Even if it's a computer, you can't have a Wi-Fi card.
I mean, if your computer is turned off, I would hope that it doesn't start connecting to networks.
Okay, fair, yes.
That is if it's an old enough computer that actually shuts off. I think, in theory, you can still shut off most modern computers, but there's like stuff with like automatic updates and like stuff like telemetry data. Like some of those do actually. I think it's normally just when they have power, but they do certain things while in while in the sleep mode. I think if you turn them fully off, they are off. But just
yeah, sleep mode. Yes, I forgot that existed. I just turn it off completely.
Yeah, some people apparently only use that basically. I mean, I like Hibernate. That's also a very useful mode to set your computer into, but you can then also just turn off the power. So that's.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think not having mobile devices with you is technically like a huge thing you can do for privacy. I mean, I guess in theory, just having like an old school cell phone would probably solve a lot of that. While they can be located with cell towers, I'm not sure if anyone's looking for that specifically, just for like where is the certain phone number located at all times. Especially because I'm not sure how much like companies like Google have access to just the cell networks. Like if you have an internet connection, it can send you the data of which cell towers are nearby. But if you just have cellular, I don't know if they track that or if they. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I know it's possible to track that. I'm just not sure if they specifically.
I mean, governments definitely do track that.
It's a classic trope in crime shows.
That is well within their ability.
Where they triangulate phones. Yeah, I know, but I know it's doable in general, but it probably helps. I mean, you could just have like a phone and just take out the battery, right? And only put it in when you use it. I mean, you can still then track wherever you are making calls, but it's not like you can use phone booths, right? Because they tore them all down.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still phone booths around some places, but it's gotten a lot less.
I mean, even then, like, you know where a phone booth is. You're not exactly gonna drag that away and call from somewhere else.
Well, yeah, but it's not immediately obvious who's using the phone booth, right? So, I mean, based on where the call is going, you might be able to have a guess,
I guess, yeah.
It doesn't have a fixed user, so... I mean, if you call someone close to you, then that very much, like a person, an individual, that could very likely limit the amount of people that it could reasonably be, and then if they can locate basically everyone else who could be the caller, that kind of limits it to you by process of elimination. But again, like that's if someone's actively looking for you specifically.
Yeah. That is a fair point.
So why does it seem like the majority of people do not care about being tracked? Let's finish it on that.
Like, I don't know, it baffles me.
I think it's one of those things where, because of how inescapable it is, and because of how it doesn't have a direct negative influence on your life, I think it's just like what you can do, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to stop using the internet.
Sure, but like, at least use ad blockers or script blockers or something.
I mean,
but like, I know a lot of people that just seem to go out of their way to add more trackers to themselves.
I mean, yeah.
At least it feels that way. I don't know.
I mean, every app you download on your phone is basically just another vector, right? Because if a website can only track you while you're on the site, but an app can track you as long as the phone is on, basically. And the app is running in theory, but like most apps don't really shut down fully. So, but, I mean, if they can show you push notifications, they're on some capacity, and they also can like connect to networks and stuff. But yeah, I guess there is some stuff. I would say that I'm, in that sense, like fairly well off, but it's not like I'm using NoScript because it's just a pain in the ass to use, right? So, like I have an ad blocker. I have some like basic, like I think I have cross-site cookies blocked and like some of like the basic stuff. But it's not like I'm like overly harshly trying to like anonymous internet presence either. It's just like, again, right? There is kind of the balance between like privacy and comfort, right? Where at some point, like ad blockers is just great, right? Because it increases your comfort and increases your privacy. But like a lot of the other things cost you comfort at the cost of getting privacy, at the benefit of getting privacy. And again, that privacy is mostly like a sort of theoretical thing in a sense anyways, because it doesn't hurt you to lose that privacy, even if it seems wrong. It doesn't directly affect you. And so and again, in some cases it might be theoretical because like, oh, I block cookies, but then they're fingerprinting me and they still know where I am at. And so it's like, you can't give a shit about everything, and since it's so out of your control, I feel like you might as well not. It's one of those things where you would have to like actually start a movement, like a political movement, to like get a lot of that shit that they're doing outlawed, and maybe then. But I don't think you can do that much about personal behavior if you want to like benefit from all of the technology. You're kind of, that's just the price you pay.
I guess. Still hard to wrap my head around that. But I guess it's true.
On that note, how about facts of the week?
How about it? So, my fact of the week is tangentially related to tracking, and is also the reason for, or the inspiration for this topic.
Yes.
Recently, a group of 7 researchers analyzed a bunch of, replays of Beat Saber plays that are publicly available to download to everyone on like on the unofficial leaderboards. It's just like the position of your headset and the controllers.
Yeah.
In relation to like the map, so you can view back the how you played a map.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went and downloaded all the replays, in total there were 2.7 million replay files distributed across 55,500 users. And just by analyzing the position of the controllers and the headset, they were able to uniquely determine which user played, or which user the sample was from, with a 94.3% accuracy.
So are the inaccuracies because they made an error, or because sometimes someone else might have been playing on someone's headset, or like someone might have been playing under two different names, stuff like that?
It's, from what I've read, the low accuracy is because some players only played like one map.
Oh, okay.
Or like only a couple maps, and it's hard to pinpoint the characteristics.
Yeah, it's a little data.
If you excluded those, the accuracy goes up to like 99.5%.
That's pretty
good. Which is crazy. Yeah.
So you sent me the link. Do I show this or something, or is there
yeah, you can open it. There's like a couple of images, visualization of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're looking at anything in particular.
Small. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like this is just text images. I
don't like
will able to do this. So yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Because I mean, first of all, just like the distance between both controllers and also between the controllers and the headset can probably roughly tell you just the proportions of the person. I mean, like the length of their arms at the very least, and like probably like overall the torso proportions fairly well. I don't know if you can infer stuff about the rest of the body that well. I mean, technically, if someone is taking a step, then you can kind of probably get leg length, like trying to estimate, but like that's not really, because if you're doing a motion while you're stepping, and also you're probably not stepping that much in theory, because the game is all about like just it's all on the wrists or whatever.
You usually just stand still and just move your hands.
So.
And that's it.
So yeah,
just cut blocks.
I can see how you would be able to get, like, first of all, just that data, which already kind of, the more precise it gets like that, it's already telling you quite a lot, and then like the way people move will presumably also differ. I wonder how well you could reconstruct a human being just from that data, right? And that's what I'm thinking. Like,
I don't know,
because you're wearing
that is interesting,
on your head, and you're holding the controllers in your hands, right? So you should be able to probably, from the motions, infer like the entire arm, right? I mean, I don't know how. I mean, there's presumably like a fairly consistent ratio from like this length to like this length, right? In human beings, but based on just how it moves, you should be able to like infer some of the pivot points, and thereby where the joints are in a given motion, and so you might be able to reconstruct quite a lot from that. But that's just me speculating. That's
although there's like I wonder how it would work with like a motion like this. Wait, can I? Yeah, like when you just keep your hand in the same position, but like move your elbow without moving anything else.
Unless there's like some sort of like micro tremor in your hand that like it can somehow infer from. I don't think it would necessarily know that, but I'm thinking about just based on your full range of motion, like, I mean, obviously there might be like some limits because you probably don't put your arms like all the way like to the sides or whatever, like when you're playing Beat Saber, I would assume. But
usually not. Like there are a couple people.
Just from like the ranges of where you're moving and the like the exact curvatures that are like happening, you could probably like like narrow it down, right? So in math, right, if you have like you can like have optimization problems, right, where it's like oh yeah, you can fit multiple curves to this data set, but like at some point, if you're trying to determine where like this point and this point and that point and this point are, right? Like I gestured your fingers, basically wrist, elbow, shoulders. If that wasn't clear, but then you can kind of infer from there, and especially because you have certain assumptions that you can make. I don't know.
Yeah, like what I'm interested in is application of this in anti-cheat system.
Oh yeah, because it's that thing, right, where sometimes you on reCAPTCHA you just click "I'm not a robot" and it just lets you through, and it does that by determining your mouse movements before you click the box, and if those felt human. So
yeah.
There are already.
I wonder if that is possible with this,
because
there have been like a couple cheated scores so far.
I mean,
if it isn't like totally obvious, they can stay up for quite a while.
That's the thing, right? If you were just trying to go for a maximum score without like caring what it looks like, you could basically just have like very stiff motions that are just always the perfect angle, but like very straight motions, stuff like that. But you could always intentionally make it a bit fuzzy and just have a little bit of variance in there, and it already looks a lot better. And so you could probably use this data to determine if someone is cheating, but then the cheating software will probably also get better and then try to hide itself again, right? As it always is, the bad guys and the good guys effectively are just kind of one-upping each other on how far they can push this. That's like always the case. So, let's talk about international politics, because that's always a fun and uncontroversial topic.
No.
So, no, this one's actually fun, though. Have you heard of the Greek-Turkish earthquake diplomacy?
I think I have, yeah.
People have been bringing it up a lot because of the recent earthquake in Turkey and northern Syria. Southern Turkey and northern Syria, I guess. But in 1999, in the summer of 1999, earthquakes hit both Greek and Turkey, and they had pretty rough relations at the time, but they decided, I guess because they were both affected by it, to help each other out, and that has kind of been a thing that they've been doing ever since. So basically every time there has been an earthquake, which I guess from just brief looking over it was mostly in Turkey, but yeah, there's been another earthquake in 2020 in Izmir, and then of course in 2023, and every time basically the Greeks were the first ones to like offer aid to Turkey, and this has been something that these two countries that have historically not always been on the greatest of terms have been using to kind of keep their relationship a little bit smoother. So yeah, that's kind of all that was.
That's a pretty cool thing. Quite wholesome.
Yeah. So there's just a fun earthquake policy fact for you. Which brings us to our halftime show. As per usual, we're doing Squirtle.
Ooh.
Our first word is adieu, and I believe our second word was story.
Sound like that, yeah.
And that is a rough start, I think. I mean, I guess we hit one letter.
I mean, we excluded quite a bit too.
No wise. Okay,
what do we want to test for? I guess of the letters we haven't tried yet, it would be N. M and L, I guess. Do you have other suggestions?
So what comes to mind also is that we could, of course, test letters that are pointing there, but it's just the O and the I, which work one way, but then not the other. As in, O works in the column, but not in the row, and for I, vice versa. So we could try something that has some of the letters that you suggested, some of the consonants we haven't used yet, combine that with maybe one or two of the vowels that could be somewhere in here, and see where that leads us.
One thing I would like to do is either start or end the word with R. Because then we basically have a complete picture of where the R goes.
What the guy's saying is there's an R hint here and an R hint there, which limits a lot where the R's can go, but they can still go in like the middle spot, in like the odd spots in the first row and column, as well as like some other places. But it's just all of the odd ones. Yeah, because almost the second and fourth coordinate are blocked, and so it's all the coordinates that start and end with an odd number. If you were to initialize them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, so we want an R in the beginning and or end. I would almost suggest end.
I assume
just because we already have the A in 1-1. It's like,
okay, yeah, fair.
if you had to pick one of the two spots that you suggested, then putting it in the end technically gives us slightly more information than putting it in the beginning.
Yes,
emphasis on slightly.
Although I cannot think of a single word where it ends with R.
Like in general, or just for the letters that you wanted to have?
Like in general.
Alter. Like with an AR and with ER.
Okay, yes.
Under.
Alright.
Smother. Bother.
Fair.
Brother. Every single word that ends in other, basically. Murder. Anyone that's doing something, right? Like the murderer, the burglar, the farmer.
Okay.
I mean, older works. It tests for D, which we already tested for in some capacity, and L, which we haven't tested for yet. It has the R at the end. It tests for E right here, arrow pointing at it. It tests for O right there. I'm not saying it's optimal, but it definitely goes to where we want it to have it. We could actually go for... No, we can't. I was going to say we could go for order for an extra R, but it's just in a spot where it can't be anyways.
I do like under.
Under.
For the N.
I mean, the U is a bit awkward because it can't go for either row or column. So that's
I would prefer if we could switch the first two letters. Nuder. If that is even a word.
I mean, yeah, it just means more nude, right?
Yeah.
That should work. We test for M, we test for U in a spot that we haven't tried, which actually also limits U in a very similar way to the R. Test the R.
Similar thing with D?
Yeah, D, for all we know, the D in the first row is the only D, but it still helps us to, at the very least, figure out where it is in that row.
Yep. Tests a couple spots for E.
And including two that could be E's that have, because they have hints pointing at them. It tests N, which we haven't used. This is pretty good, yeah. Wow. Okay. You know what, I'm just going to put it for now. I don't know if it is there, but it feels like there might be there.
It feels likely.
It also feels like there might be an R in the bottom right corner, but not a lot of other places. I was gonna say, can it even be elsewhere? I mean, yeah, you could have an R there and an R
Actually,
there.
no, it doesn't. Yeah.
But it feels very likely. I'm just gonna put it down anyways. As a likely, not as a guaranteed. We found AD, but not the one we're looking for. Well, I mean, I guess we're looking for any letter, but we found a U, which might have been the only one that we're looking for. The row needs an I.
Yep.
Okay, just from the top of your head, how often do words end in I?
Sometimes.
Yeah, fairly rarely. I'm thinking I here, admittedly, not great guess, but it is still.
Yep.
It almost feels like we should be able to just guess what the word is, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, well, the D is not further limit in the first row, so that's not useful. The STO there are not that useful. The M isn't that useful. We already placed one E. I don't think there's anything very obvious to guess in any other position
Wait, we
right now.
have tried T's before. Oh, only one. Okay. It could be audit.
Oh, it could be audit. I don't hate that. I mean, it's not that useful right now, but it is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
We could try a word ending in T, which doesn't help us that much, though, because we could definitely try for some that has the IE in it to see if those are correct, because those are both, at this point, just guesses.
True. Good point.
Like, how the words have an R in them. I'm thinking, like, the obvious one to go would just be RIED at the end, like tried, pride, right? Like, wait, pride, like that does work, pride as in has pride, as in did pry. Glide glide would be IDE. Like pride, the noun.
Flied.
Plied, PLIED.
No, F.
Flied.
But P also works, I guess.
Flied doesn't ring a bell. Plied does sound plausible, because to ply is a word.
I think. Yeah, flown is the correct.
Yeah. Plied, like something you would do with a plier.
Also works.
I mean, we haven't tested L yet, and we haven't tested P yet, so it's not that terrible. I actually like it. Do you want to just try that?
I do too, yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, let's see. E can go there or there, and then the same thing there, where it can go there or there. So that is very useful information. No D's there, but maybe there?
Almost has to be. Almost.
Well, it can't be there. It could be there. Can't be in the end. So it's a 50-50 for the column.
Also 50-50 for the row.
It has the exact same thing going exactly, but it has to be in the center or there. A dater, someone who dates. which actually might not be that stupid. Dates as in determines the date of something, not as in goes on a date. That could actually, like, genuinely be a word. Either for a device or a person. Like, it does, I don't know, carbon dating or something. Because I'm thinking, right, if...
Oh, I just noticed the L hits.
What? The L?
Yep. We hit both of them.
Yeah, so it feels like it might be there, but it could also be there or there. Yep. It can be in a lot of places, effectively. But yeah, no, that's a good point. We do have L's. For the purposes of the... I was thinking for the bottom row, we have nothing, basically, except for the R. For the right row, we have the D in the beginning as a likely candidate, the R at the end as a likely candidate. And you said this could be audit, which means I was thinking maybe put a T there. And now I'm just trying to think which word makes this happen. E is 50-50 at this spot, so it doesn't seem that stupid. This can't be O or U, which basically makes it either deter, which actually could work, deter, or dater.
Yeah.
Because I don't think dater is a word.
I kind of prefer deter.
Yeah, after I said, like, after I went through the options, I realized that deter was one. I hadn't realized it until I said it. So that is why it went with dater. I think this is a good guess, isn't it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
And it's also correct, which makes it even better. Also,
we hit 2 additional E's.
Yeah, no, I mean,
quite nice.
It was almost correct for the for the row too. Okay, so at this point, audit sounds very likely. We have the D. E is a 50-50 in the first row, but it feels like it's more likely there. For a number of reasons, actually. AE as a start it exists, but oftentimes the words are just spelled with an E these days, like ether and stuff like that. There was another one, Eon. First column needs an S, which, unless it's suited, would be there or there. Just a thought. Could say sewer at the bottom.
Yeah.
Or sever with a V. That would also work, I think. It seems less likely as a final letter for a word. Word ending in V sounds less likely than word ending in W, but I was just thinking, right? Serer, seater, seeper, seder, sefer, sid, segur, seker, sever, seber. I think if the S is in the final position, which is, again, just more of a guess, really, than anything else, then W or V seem
I'm not against it. Yep.
We're now basically trying to determine, do we guess the row or the column, given that we have up to 3 letters for both? I guess if we had a guess for either, we might go for the column, just because we have more guesses, rather than just letters that we already know are there anyways. Like, we know the A and D are there, but for the column we only know the A. Although we could always go for trying out an L there or a T there, where we don't really have much to go for these.
By the way, why did you put the E at the top there?
Because
of the AE?
We need one in the row, and AE was a bit awkward, and also we do need one in the column as well, where we don't need one in the other column necessarily.
Okay, I see.
Nothing definitive.
Yeah, makes sense.
Just like 2 things that tend to push me in that direction. It could be amend. No, it can't be, actually, never mind. There literally can't be an N there. Attend? Oh no, it can't. No, there can't be an N in the row because of this.
Oh yeah.
But there would have to be one there, which means probably there, because if it is a W at the end there, it's not going to be, it's not going to be double DNW. So it's probably going to be endow, I guess. That's a word.
Oh yes.
Now I'm starting to really believe in that whole sewer thing. Okay. Which brings the L, I mean, either way, either there or there. Oh, there seems likely because we need an L in the column anyways. In the row. We need one in the row and in the column. We could put it there and just have it be like, I don't know, anals, and have this one be like, I don't know, a meld. That's not a word. But it feels likely there. Owl. Shoal. Stole.
Yeah, a mass.
A mass. I was just about to say it. I mean, okay, we're getting further and further into just guessing, but this feels really good.
It really does.
This is one of those positions where we always have to guess two letters, which is kind of annoying for the rows and columns. If we had one that we could just force it, but... Okay, is there anything we haven't used yet? I don't see anything. I think we've used all the hints.
I think so too.
The thing is, we could just try a mass right now and see if that is even correct, but the problem there is that it's not exactly guessing a lot of different letters. So if it's wrong, that doesn't give us a lot of information. Although it does tell us what the S is. The fact that this letter can't be an N or an R is really throwing me off, because I'm like, amend, assert, right? And it just all doesn't work. I mean, assert would be so with a T, so I'm an idiot as well, but, just in general. I mean, generally, end and ert are erd, even are. I mean, L, I guess, is the obvious one to put there then. What would it be then? A weld, a reld, a teld, a peld, a zeld, a feld, a geld, held. A held? That sounds wrong. A geld, a killed, a zeld, a keld, a veld, a beld, a meld, and... I don't think it's... It might not be an L. It probably isn't an L, huh? It would also have to be... Mm-hmm. Could it be style? No, it can't be. Oh, fuck, it can't be on any front. As much as like what we have, it is kind of awkward to have N something E, right? Oh, no, well, I guess it could be a G. Kyle? That doesn't make sense. Agile. Could it be? Could the word in the second to last column be agile? I mean, EAD as an ending, like in lead, or led for that matter, or, okay, that's the only one that comes up. But, like, that does work, like mead as well, I think spelled that way.
Yes, and then the first row is ahead.
Oh. Wait, did I not suggest the H before for some? Wait, that's not the way that agile is spelled. Let's try that again. Ahead. And this one becomes... I mean... Huh. I mean, I think minge might work, but then hute seems a bit odd. I guess it's A. I'm not 100% sure what mange would be, but haute works as an haute couture. I mean, it's French, but it's used in English as well as a very international term. Like you have...
okay, never heard of it.
Like haute couture, I think there's also something for high fashion. Is that high fashion? There's I think that does maybe work. I guess let's try to go for the... Well, if we want to solve as quickly as possible, we'd still go for the columns, right? Assuming everything's correct.
Yes.
Because we already have a solved column.
Yes.
Mass, which is correct. Haute, which is correct. What does it say? Endow, that's not how you spell it. Endow, which is correct. And agile, which is also correct. Hey, we win.
That we do. That went better than expected.
It fell into place there all of a sudden. That happens so often, but it always feels great. Like the moment when it falls into place, it's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, haute just means high. I think it's just French for high. I don't think there's like an additional meaning there. I mean, mange is just French for eat, but that's probably not what they're going for. Define mange.
It's a type of skin disease, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Mange is a type of skin disease caused by parasitic mites, okay. And then I'm assuming if I define haute, it's just going to be... fashion would be elegant, okay, fair enough. But Merriam-Webster, high class, yeah. Because it literally just is French for high. So yeah, that makes sense. So ahead... mange, audit, stole, sewer, amass, haute, endow, agile, and deter. Got a little tricky there at the end. But once you only need one letter, it's kind of doable to also get words that you might have not known.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that was... When I got agile, that was when it really all fell into place. Finally. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, that was... Wow. Our second topic, as per usual, is questions. Good questions to ask in this case. Courtesy of TransactionStuffWorld.com. What was cool when you were young but isn't cool now? I mean, I was going to say smoking, but I'm not that old.
I mean, it's probably still true.
I mean, it's like, yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of the cool kids were smoking, but at that point, it was already like well known that smoking isn't a good thing, and also it was already diminishing overall in society. So, in terms of like, yeah, there were people that thought it was cool, and maybe they stopped thinking it now. Sure, but I don't think there's like a societal thing where that changed. I guess there's two ways to take this question, right? What was generally seen as cool when you were young, like on a societal level, and isn't anymore, and what was like in your environment when you were younger seen as cool versus not now. But that is so it's either a question about societal change or about personal development, basically, or about like just aging. But I was immediately thinking about like just societally at large, right? What was cool in the 2000s that isn't cool anymore. That's what I was thinking,
Yeah. It's a hard question for me to answer because I generally don't really pay all that much attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that, and then second of all, a lot of those things, even some of the things that were cool back then still are, right? So that's...
Yeah, no, I don't think I can answer that.
Yeah, me neither. Well, besides what I kind of sort of said, but yeah. If you were moving to another country but could only pack one carry-on sized bag, what would you pack?
Please define carry-on sized.
I was wondering about that a little bit as well. I think that comes from, it comes from airplanes, right? So you can, your regular baggage goes in the plane in the back, and sometimes even on a different plane, that can happen, which is fun when that plane gets delayed but yours doesn't. But carry-on is something that you take with you on the plane, like you put in the overhead compartment usually. So I haven't done that I have been on a plane, but I reckon it's probably a similar size to what you would be able to put above you on a bus, right? Maybe it's slightly larger.
From what I remember, it's usually
not a lot.
Quite big bags, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
Like it's almost a full suit, like a full case. Like what's the?
Honestly, we could just go for like
suitcase.
If you can,
suitcase is a different thing, right?
I mean, suitcase is usually what like business people have, right?
Yeah, like the travel case, I guess, is the name.
I think they might also be called suitcases, honestly. That's not what I meant to do. That's what I meant to do. Let's go for suitcase and just look at the images and see what that gives us. Yeah, no, it is. It's just a suitcase. I think the one... Yeah, it's just both. Those are both suitcases. Yeah, that's just what that is.
Okay.
But good. Let's go for a suitcase. I mean, why not, right? I think the exact size is not as much of a problem.
It's better to visualize. It's easier to visualize.
I mean, my first thought always is like computer, right? Because it's like one of the most expensive things I own.
Yeah.
But it also takes up a lot of space. I mean, you could technically just take the actual like worthwhile components, but then like actually like storing them becomes a bit of an issue. Camera comes to mind as being another expensive thing that I... Well, I mean, like, if you don't have the original CPU case anymore, then transporting the CPU is a bit of a dicey thing. You don't want to break off a pin.
I guess, yeah. Especially using AMD CPUs, yeah.
I mean, I guess
I can see that.
If you're taking your mainboard, you might as well keep the CPU in there. But you could technically take your computer, but just not take the case. Basically, that would probably already save a lot of space.
Yes. I would probably do that. Also, as you mentioned, camera and like my couple lenses, I wouldn't really take all of them with me because most of them are trash.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say cash money, but like honestly, most of the physical money that I would carry on me, I would probably just have in my wallet, in my pocket. I wouldn't like need a extra bag for that. And the thing is, I don't have that much stuff that is like worth a lot. So, because that's the first thing that comes to mind, right?
I would definitely take my keyboard with me because that is actually worth quite a bit.
Yeah, not me. I would
just get my audio interface.
I mean, I guess it's like electronics is the first thing because so two things come to mind, right?
Yeah.
Things that are either expensive or irreplaceable, right? And I don't think I own anything irreplaceable. or at least nothing that I would care about. So that really kind of brings it down to expensive, which is mostly electronics. And then I guess, depending on how long the actual, well, I guess it's moving to another country. Like, I was going to say, like, maybe some books for the journey, but it's like, you're probably taking a plane. You're probably there within the day. You don't have to, like, take multiple books with you to keep yourself entertained. And books are, like, the worst thing to take with you when you're moving, because they take up a lot of space and they're fairly cheap.
Also heavy. They're really, really heavy.
Heavy, spacious, and cheap, right? So you can just get rid of your books. You can probably not sell them because no one buys used books for some reason. But then you can just buy them again. And even if you buy them at MSRP, you probably, like, it's still probably better than trying to move them in most cases.
Yeah.
It's just electronics, right? Like, I mean, sure, I take my e-reader. It doesn't take a lot of space and it has, like, a bunch of digital books on it. It kind of goes in the other direction where it's like, actually buying ebooks would be expensive, while also the reader doesn't weigh that much. Yeah, it's just electronics. What's the most ironic thing you've seen happen?
For that, I would need to have a memory that's longer than like a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, A, I don't have a very good detailed memory, and second of all, I don't necessarily categorize things in my brain as ironic or not, right? So it's not like I could just think of, like, oh, what's the most ironic thing? Because that's not how my brain works. So, even if there was something really funny, I probably wouldn't remember it right offhand. If magic was real, what spell would you try to learn first? I mean, it depends entirely on what your magic system looks like, right? Like, there's so many questions.
Yeah.
I mean, if we just go through the D&D
There's
spell
a lot
list,
of possibilities.
if we just go, like, through the spell list for, like, D&D, I guess if I can learn any spell, I'd just pick Wish.
Yes.
One of the options being to replicate the effect of any other spell. I think only 8th level and down, but still, right? Like, that's just the most flexible spell, but at the same time, A, that can backfire, which is always dangerous, and B, it would likely be more difficult to learn than, like, a first level spell, and so then the question becomes, right?
Yes.
Which is the first
I
level?
just picked Mage Hand.
Right? It's like, I would probably
so useful.
Because at the end of the day, the first spell you would learn is whatever is the most useful spell to learn first, obviously, as sort of a balance between how easy it is to learn versus how useful a spell is, versus how much it helps you learn the next spell, right? Because I'm assuming if you learn Fire Blast, then learning Fireball is probably easier because you understand the fundamentals of fire magic or whatever. So,
yeah,
it's a thing where just learning a spell that you can learn fairly easily would probably be more helpful if you continue studying magic, to just at least get how magic works in the first place. And then you go from there. So something simple like Mage Hand would make a lot of sense, especially because you don't want to go for the destructive spells, because then you'd have to destroy stuff to learn them. Also, if they backfire, that's even worse. So yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
Mage Hand, Unseen Servant.
So Mage Hand is like S tier
Levitate.
To learn. Especially if you're like... No, like just regular computer user. If you use the keyboard a lot, but still have to use the mouse sometimes because of program does not work with keyboard only, just saving that little hand movement back and forth, worth it.
So here's the other thing, right? One thing that I've always wondered about is when you're watching like something like Harry Potter, right? And you're like, how can someone not be enthusiastic about learning magic, right? Like, because there are bad students at Hogwarts, not just because some of them are just not as talented, but some just don't pay a lot of attention in school. And I'm like, when I was watching that as a kid, I was like, if they were teaching me magic in school, I would totally be paying more attention, right? And the answer is, because to them, magic is just a normal part of life, right?
Yeah.
Like, the stuff you learn in science class can also be very useful. That doesn't mean you're paying more attention. So,
same with math. Like, math is basically magic.
I mean, yeah, but I also love math, so, But it's a thing where if magic was real, I probably would be a lot less enthusiastic about it.
Or, I guess, an even better analog to magic is programming. There's like infinite possibilities what you can do with programming.
Yeah, and
but not a lot of people really care.
I learned some stuff, but it's not like I'm a super great programmer. And the same things apply here, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I would probably learn some stuff. I would probably not learn the super hard stuff because probably doesn't seem that important to me.
It's like barely useful.
Yeah.
Also hard to learn.
Okay, let's do one more question and then call it for today. If you were a ghost that could possess people, what would you make them do? Sergej, I was hoping you were going to answer the question.
I guess probably just make them say stupid stuff.
I mean... Okay, so here's the thing, right? There's kind of two ways you can look at that, but I feel like the most obvious answer for me is just nothing, right? Like just think about, like, you're just violating someone to, like, do... Like, imagine someone takes control of your body and makes you do stuff, right? Like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that to people. I mean, the other option is just to, like, try to actually use it against, like, bad people, quote unquote, and try to, use it against them, right? Not as in terms of hurting them, but as in, like, undoing their bad stuff and stuff like that, right? So, like, politicians that are, like, arguing for, like, terrible policy to just, like, have them publicly speak out against it, stuff like that, where it's like having billionaires, like, renounce their wealth, stuff like that, where it's oh yeah, just swoop into Jeff Bezos' body and give away all of his money, right? Like, sure, right? Like, it still is kind of icky to be controlling someone else's body, just on principle, but, like, this is one of the situations where maybe the benefits outweigh the costs, right? Like, maybe Jeff Bezos feels a bit icky afterwards, but at least he's not a billionaire anymore. Like,
True.
I'm not going to make him poor. It's just like, why does he need to have multiple billions of dollars?
Yeah. Couple millions should be more than enough.
Right? So that's kind of
lifetime.
That's kind of the two things where it's like, on the one hand, it seems like an immoral thing to do, like controlling someone against their will. But it also seems like a great opportunity to just really decrease like the wealth inequality in the world. And like other stuff.
That is a good point, yeah.
So, with that, let's move on to our final segment to end this on a high note and a bad music pun. So, okay, what is your song of the week?
My song of the week is Hysteric Night Girl by PSYQUI. I don't know how to pronounce that artist band name. I kind of expected that.
I mean, at first that was very much a ooh, but then like I feel like you get used to it very quickly, and then it's just kind of neutral.
Fair enough.
I think it's because it sounds so artificial, right? Where like a lot of the like electronic and like obviously auto-tune stuff I'm normally not a big fan of, but this, like, the whole sound of it all isn't actually like that bad, so it's just a fairly neutral one for me. Anything else you want to say?
That's a better rating than I would have expected, so I'm happy with that.
If you don't have anything else to say, my song of the week is... Would you believe that I'm blanking on the tongue right now?
Yes.
Let me,
I totally believe you.
Yeah, so it's by Kenny Loggins, and it's called Heartlight.
I do like that.
Yeah, so it's literally, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna remember this. And then, I was like, oh yeah, it's Kenny Loggins, it's not Footloose, it's not Highway to the Danger Zone. What was it? It's like, oh god, Jesus. I forgot the title. So Heartlight by Kenny Loggins. Yeah, I think I've had this as Song of the Week, like, about 5 years ago, so, I don't know. Probably had it before. It's like a very OG song for me. Like, when I first started, like, consciously being aware of which songs I was listening to, basically, or choosing which songs I was listening to. This was definitely one of the early ones. I haven't talked about Kenny Loggins in a while, I think, so that seemed like a good one to pick. And that brings this episode of the Trash Talk Podcast to a close. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to see more of this like this and you aren't already subscribed, do that. If you have something to say, leave a comment or contact us through our Discord server. Link to that is in the description below. Sergej.
That's it.
That's it.